Okay, we just want to make sure everyone could hear us and see us. So we haven't gotten any responses yet. So let us know if you could. Okay, great. Thank you. And then everyone should see this. So let's get started. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. What is it? It's 1 o'clock. Good afternoon. This is Gary Feldman. I'm president of U.S. Computer Connection.
And this is Ronnie Kaplan from Computer Training Solutions.
And you would think we'd figure out how to do this by now, but somehow we always have a complication. So we're going to get started. And what are we doing today, Ronnie?
Well, we are going to talk about and see examples of how you use a lookup function within Excel to help you find information in a more accurate and quicker fashion than you would if you were kind of looking down 300 rows and then going across 10 columns.
So we're going to get started on this, and we just want to remind everyone that you could ask questions by clicking on the chat. We're here to answer anything that you have for us. Ronnie's going to display this, but Ronnie, if someone wants more information.
Yes, you can call me at 203-329-2421, and I am available for individual sessions or corporate group sessions for training, half day or full day.
Okay, great. So why don't we get started, Ronnie?
Okay, so I hope everyone can see this little simple spreadsheet. So I'm doing a very simple example here, and this is the concept of a lookup. Let's say this is my little table, and in this case it's showing credit ratings, and the higher your credit rating number, the more interest you have to pay on a loan. And here is information about a loan and with a payment function, and what we're trying to do is say, okay, if the credit rating is 4, then I want to go and reference this area here, find that matching 4, and then go across to the second column and have it return to me what the interest rate would be. More typically, this is done with a larger table that would be on a separate sheet, but just so it's easy for everybody to visualize what I'm doing it, making it very simple and on the same sheet. So I would put the formula here for the lookup because this is where I want the answer, and that's always the case. And the way in which you can get to your formulas or functions is to go to formulas. There is a category of functions called lookup and reference. And since we're doing a V or vertical lookup, and we tend to array our data in Excel vertically, we're going to use the VLookup capability. And so it gives me a function arguments box that asks me, what do I want to look up? So what I want to look up in this case is the credit rating that appears in B5. And where do I want to look it up? Where is the table array? I'm going to move this out of the way a little so I can select it. You don't have to include the headings if you don't want to. It's not necessary. But it is necessary to have the first key column in ascending order. No matter whether it's alpha or numeric, it has to be in ascending order. And then it's asking me which column number in my table array do I want to return information from. And in this case, I only have 2 columns, and I'm looking up on that first column to find the matching credit rating, and then I'm going to the second column in order to find my answer. So in this case, it's column number 2. And here's an instance where you must type in the number. It's not like you're clicking on a reference in your spreadsheet. The last field here, which is optional because it's not bolded, as you can see, this range lookup. This allows you to indicate whether you'd like to have it as an exact match or not. And since in this case we don't want an exact match, because my rating might be 5.5 or 9.2, so I don't want it to have to be exact. So I'm going to leave that blank. This is really a true-false function, so if I leave it blank, it takes it as a true. And if I want it to be an exact match, I type in false. So in this case, I don't. And I'm going to say OK. It gives me the answer right here, by the way, but I'm going to say OK, and there is my answer. So if you go to 4 on the table and look across to column 2, you see that it's 3%. So the idea would be I might have my sheet, my chart or table on another sheet, and maybe I have 8.4 and as my credit rating, and when I enter that, it immediately tells me 5%. Now, this is an example why I wouldn't want an exact match. In this case, it always drops back to the previous if it finds a fraction. So in this case, even if I had 5.9, which we all know is closer to 6 than 5, when I enter that, it's going to drop back to the 5, to what matches up to the 5 in column 2, which is the 3.5. That's the way it works. If I typed something in here as a rating that was higher than my highest number on the chart, which is 16, so what if I have a 19 credit rating? I've really been a bad person here, and my credit rating is shot. It only knows to drop back to the 9 because it has no other possibilities here. If I type in something that's lower than the lowest item on my in my table, like a half a point, 0.5, it doesn't know what to do, so it gives me that not available. Doesn't have a clue. So that's the way it typically works. And again, if I type in something that seems relatively simple, it gives me the answer. So that is a very simple example of how a lookup works. I'm going to show you a couple of more examples. So we're going to go to this one called, this is a little bit larger. I'm still not using anything too large. So it has about 90 employees on it with all sorts of information. It has a lot more columns. So it has a lot more. So we have, I think, 10 columns here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and the gross pay is the last one. And if I had one of these items here, one of these employee numbers, that's my key lookup, and I have my lookup information on the second sheet, and if I want to then paste that information here, so that's the employee number I'm using. Now, if I then want to create a lookup, I can go to my formulas and go to the lookup and reference functions, or a shorter way to do that would be to start typing the function. And I know it starts with an equal V, and then the lookup, the name of the functions appear. And if I was very familiar with this, I could type in my information here, but it's usually easier for us to go to that insert function, fx, and then we get the function arguments box. So then it kind of separates all of the different arguments out for you. So what we're looking up here would be the employee number we typed into that B1 cell. And in the table array, now I could go back to my first sheet and highlight the whole thing, but I have already given it a name, and so I've given it a range name of data, so it knows what data refers to. And what column I'm looking for here, I believe that would be column 10. Let me just make sure, yep. Column 10 would be the one that I'm looking for, the gross pay. And in this case, I do want to make sure it's an exact lookup, because if I typed in an incorrect number here in the employee ID, I don't want it to give it information, to give me information for the wrong person or for a non-existent person. So I will type in the word false here, which means it's looking only for an exact match. And when I say OK, it gives me 640. So this is for the employee AC27. So let's find that employee, and 640 is the appropriate answer. And we could, again, do a similar thing for hours worked. Again, I'm going to turn on the function arguments, and I'm looking up the employee number that I put in B1. I'm looking at the table that I called data, and I believe that is column number 8. I think that's 8. Without going back and counting, I'll take a flyer on that. And there is 40 hours, yeah. And the benefits would be then column 7. So let's do one more. And again, I'm looking at that employee number there, the table array I've named. You see why it's so much easier to name the table array. It's column 7, and we want an exact match, so I put in false. So here's my information for this particular employee. Now, the beauty of this is if I then go and select any other employee ID number and then paste that where I'd want it, it immediately changes and all of that information comes in there. So if we go back and check for GBA14, you can see that 589 is correct, 38 hours, and no benefits. So that's the way it goes. So that's more commonly how it's used. You might have a large table here, and again, if I go and to the name box and I say data, I've just created a data area. I've named it so that I don't have to keep going back and selecting it if I'm using it more than once. Okay. So that's another example. Now, sometimes we might want to use, whoops, let me get to the right sheet. We might want to use our lookups to find out if a whole list of items, maybe their inventory numbers on one sheet, matches or what items might not match on another sheet. So perhaps you're the inventory control person and you're getting in a spreadsheet showing you what's going to be on shipment A from one factory, and there might be 300 items on it with all sorts of information about them, and you're also getting in a spreadsheet from shipment B that's coming in from a different factory, and you want to see what's on one shipment that's not on another. And you would have to go by some sort of ID number, of course, inventory number. So I kind of created a very simple look at this to show you how that would work. And I'm sure you can imagine how it would work in a larger environment. So here I took some ID numbers and information about those sales reps, and then another list underneath it. These would most likely be on different sheets or even different files if you wanted. So I'm going to then recreate this formula that I had here to show you how it works. So again, I'm going to just start doing the lookup, start typing it in, and access that lookup and turn on my dialog box, my function arguments box. And what is it that I want to look up? I want to look up this ID number. And it's very important that this list be in, again, ascending order, otherwise you're not going to get accurate information. And my table array in this case would be here. I want to match that number against any of these and see if it's the same, and it should be an absolute reference. So I'm going to put in the absolute reference indicators. And what column number? Now it's in this case, even though I have a 4-column table, I'm really matching up or looking at only column number 1. So I want to see if the items in this first setup data area in column 1 match the ones in the second. And again, I'm needing to make sure that this is only an exact match, because that's the whole point, those that match in 1. So I'm going to say OK, and it tells me for this first one that yes, that number appears in the second list. It's not in the same location necessarily, but it's checking that whole list. So here's the power of this. If I auto-fill this down, it's going to check each one of these in that whole second list and tell me in which case there are 2 here that do not match. So this one does not appear anywhere in the second list, and this one does not appear anywhere in the second list, but the other ones do. So you can imagine if you had to check 500 items from one list against 300 items from another list, that doing that manually would be a very time-consuming and probably very error-prone kind of task. So this makes it a lot more sensible. So that's an example. I also wanted to show you, although I did mention that VLookup was the most common, that we can also use an HLookup or horizontal lookup. And this is an example of, let's say, a situation in which you were looking for parts for a car or some other device, and each of these has different model numbers, and you can have the piece of equipment from a different year, and in that year, what model number would you need, and these in the middle are the part numbers. So if I said, okay, I have a 2007 800 model gizmo, then I would need part number 655. If you had a very large sheet with lots of years and lots of model numbers listed, again, it would be tedious and error-prone to go and look this up yourself. So we want to use the lookup functions in order to do this more automatically. So here down at the bottom of this list, I've indicated an area where I'm going to say just 2010 is the year, that's the last year we have on that sheet. And for the model number, I'm just going to put in 300, which is one of the model numbers. And if we go take a look at that, 300, if we go out to 2010, you could see the answer would be 803. Okay, so I wanted to give us that answer automatically. So what we're going to do is use an HLookup, and again, I'm using the same method by just starting to type the function, and then it gives it to me automatically, and then I'm going to tell it to give me the function arguments box. So what value am I looking up? So I am looking up the year, 2010. And what is my table array? Again, I've named it data. It's just my go-to name for a data area. And now it wants to know what row number is that model number that you're looking for. And the model number 300 that I said is actually in row number 4. So we had to know that, and we had to type that in. And again, we want an exact match, so I'm going to type it in as false. And there's my 803, which was the number that I said for the 300, that we get 803 for the 210. Okay. Now, if I were to change the year to maybe 2000, notice it changes automatically the product ID, and if I go to 300 and 2000, you can see that that's the correct answer. However, if I change the model number to maybe 3800, because that's one we can see at the bottom, you can see that nothing happened here. This did not change. And why? Because we need to tell it what row number that 3800 was in. So I'd have to start counting at the top, like the 300 model was row number 4, I'd have to count all the way down. And that's exactly what we don't want to have to do. So what we're going to do here is we're going to modify this VLookup formula, and we're going to incorporate within it, instead of having to tell it what row number, we're going to use another function that we're going to nest within this one. And this function is called match. And we're going to tell it to match the model number. And by looking at A2 through A75, which is the whole column that all the model numbers are in. And so what it's going to do is it's going to be able to return a value, a number, based on what model you put in. It's going to count down and tell us, oh, it's row number 15 or it's row number 3 or whatever. And that's the idea. So when we say OK, now it locates the appropriate for 2000 and 3800. That's the appropriate answer. And the beauty of it here is if I change this to 2005, it works. All right, I get 560. But also if I change, let's say, to 3300, the model number, that also works. Where do I have 2005? Oops, I'm not showing it because I'm clicked above it. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I changed it in the wrong place. Duh. Okay, I meant to change it here. Okay. So now I find my model 3300, and if we look at 2005, it's giving me the right answer, 474. So what this enabled us to do by using the match is, instead of having to count the row numbers, it automatically figures it out for us, and we can now look both ways at once. This could have been done also with a VLookup, and using the match to locate the number of the column for the year. So it would have worked both ways. But since I started out with an VLookup here to give you a look at it, I've just continued with that. So it's also an example, a rather nice example of nesting one function within another, which makes life easier frequently. Okay, so I'm going to go back to show you another example of nesting. I'm going to go back to this example where we had employees and about, 95 of them with different information. And if we go out to here, originally we did a second sheet and we looked up the information for the gross pay and the hours and so forth on a second sheet. But what I'm doing here is I have the information that's looking up the number, the key number, employee number in this cell, and then it's finding me the answer for column 10. So it's giving me that information for that employee. But over here, what we've done is something a little bit different, and I have said, okay, do the lookup on A5, which is the first employee ID number, and give me row 10 as an answer, but I don't necessarily want the answer right here. I want to know if that gross pay is greater than 800, and if it is, I want it to return the information high salary, and if not, low salary. So let me change this so that it says A5. So we'll see the first one here. So this is our very first one. And here, if we autofill, we're seeing the salary, that's going down. It's filling it down. It's not in the same. Okay. Now, the key with this is I can autofill this, and it's giving me the information as to each one, whether it meets my criteria for high salary or low salary. So again, what I've done is I've nested in here. This is the statement that I put in order to nest it. So it's an if. And the VLookup statement that we use is saying, show me the gross pay of that particular person, that ID number, and if it's greater than 800, that's the criteria, then put high salary, and if it's false, if it's not greater than 800, put low salary. So I'm able to use that as a nested statement to give me other types of information that I might be interested in. Okay, so it's another example of nesting of these lookups. So I'd like to see if there's any questions at this point. You can type some into the chat area if you have a question.
Wow.
Whoa, everybody's got it, huh?
I guess, man. All right, we do these free monthly, so we're always looking for ideas and suggestions. Ronnie's been fantastic about helping us all learn about Excel, PowerPoint, Word, all different subjects over the years. We will post this up. Ronnie will have it on her website. We'll have it on our website as well. So if you want to review this lesson, you can. And again, Ronnie is available for hire.
And it's computertrainingsolutions.biz, B-I-Z, is the website.
Well, since we don't have any questions, Ronnie, I'm going to say this might be time to say goodbye.
Okay, happy Earth Day, everybody.
Happy Earth Day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.